Some mornings arrive soft, like a secret past between old friends. You wake before the birds, before the breeze even stirs the trees, and for a fleeting moment it feels like the world belongs to you. I'd settle into my old Adirondack chair, mug in hand, and watch the lake behind my house shimmer with that silver calm that only comes after a lifetime of noise. Retirement had gifted me that peace. My home, a modest, three-bedroom ranch tucked at the edge of Crystal Lake, wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Every plank of the dock, every lilac in the garden had a purpose. And on those quiet mornings, it felt like I had finally arrived at the reward for a life played straight, until Karen Henderson showed up. Now, Pine Ridge is the kind of place where people name their lawnmowers and debate mulch types like it's a sport. But Karen, she was something else entirely. Queen bee of the HOA, real estate queenpin in her own mind, and self-declared keeper of community standards. She lived across the cul-de-sac in a 5,000-square-foot monstrosity that looked like a casino, pretending to be a house. Every morning, she'd do laps around her property like a security guard with a Fitbit addiction. For a while, I thought she was just nosy. Turns out she was building a business off my property. Let me back up. I bought the house because of the lake. Private dock, private beach, peace and privacy. That was the promise. And for the first 6 months, it delivered. I'd grill with friends, Kaya, at dawn, and host the occasional beer-on-the-deck sunset evening. Life was simple, good. Then one Saturday morning, a knock came at the door. Karen, wearing athleisure that probably cost more than my kayak, was standing there with a clipboard. "Good morning, I'm Karen Henderson, HOA president. We've had a few concerns." "Concerns, huh?" She rattled off violations like she was reading from the Book of Judgment. My kayak rack was 2 inches too close to the fence. My patio chairs weren't on the approved vendor list. And apparently, my wildflowers weren't wild enough for Section 12.4 of the Landscaping Ordinance. I made the changes. Thought that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. About 2 weeks later, I noticed strangers in my yard. First, it was a young couple snapping selfies on my dock. Then, a group of teens sunbathing like it was a public beach. One even had the audacity to set up a Bluetooth speaker and start blasting music. I asked what they were doing. They said they'd rented the Henderson Lakeside Getaway on some vacation site. Said the listing came with lake access, dock rights, and exclusive waterside amenities. That's when I saw it. Pictures of my dock, my beach. Even my kaya in the background, bold as daylight on a 300 a night rental page hosted by none other than Karen Henderson. I marched across the street, blood boiling, and found her power washing her driveway like nothing had happened. "Oh, that," she said, blinking innocently. "It's a shared view. It helps everyone's property values. You should be grateful." Grateful. She warned me that if I started limiting access, she could file a complaint under the Neighborhood Harmony Clause. That night I didn't sleep. I pulled out the HOA bylaws, the property deed, old surveys, everything. And that's when I found it, buried on page 46, a clause about privacy structures, fences, walls, height limits, materials, approval, processes, all very specific. And even better, a grandfather clause for lakefront property owners, like me who had rights prior to the HOA's formation. The next morning I called Derek, my college roommate, now a property attorney with a flair for poetic justice. I laid it out. The trespassing, the fraud, the Airbnb scheme. He laughed for a solid 5 minutes. "Don't sue her," he said. "Build a wall." So we did. It was the most meticulous operation of my life, and I've done IRS audits. We brought in surveyors, filed permits, hired a construction crew, and even consulted a landscape architect to make sure the structure was not only legal, but impenetrably within code. Memorial Day weekend, Karen's annual HOA barbecue. At 7 a.m., trucks rolled in. By noon, the posts were up. By dusk, cedar planks stretched 12 feet into the air like the walls of a fortress. From her house, no view, not a glimmer of lake, just a towering wall of justice in treated wood. The screaming started at 7:02 p.m. Karen came storming across the cul-de-sac. barbecue guests trailing behind her like confused ducklings. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "You're ruining the aesthetic." I took a sip of beer, handed her a folder. Inside, every permit, the surveyor's signed report, printouts of her fraudulent listings, screenshots, a cease and desist from Derek's law firm. Her face went from fury to panic in real time. One of her guests leaned over, whispering, "Wait, are we in those pictures?" Another looked up the listing on their phone. Karen tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but the HOA treasurer didn't buy it. "We need to audit her accounts," he muttered. By Tuesday, an emergency HOA meeting was scheduled. I came prepared. A PowerPoint presentation, testimonies from guests, time-stamped footage, even footage of Karen directing guests across my yard. By the end, the board was nodding. Someone finally asked the real question. "Karen, were you collecting rental income without reporting it?" Silence. That silence cost her the vote. Unanimous removal, effective immediately. An official HOA letter followed, affirming every owner's right to privacy and banning any rentals that misrepresented property access. Karen's listings vanished overnight. Refund requests flooded her inbox. Then came the lawsuit notices. And finally, the state attorney general's office opened an investigation. 3 months later, I was trimming hedges when a process server rolled up asking for Karen. By the end of that week, a foreclosure notice was posted on her front door. The last time I saw her, she was hurling boxes into a moving truck with all the grace of a tantrum in motion. As the truck pulled away, she glared at the wall one last time and gave me a gesture that wouldn't make it. Past YouTube's community guidelines. I raised my coffee in reply. Today that wall still stands. The cedar has aged to a rich silver, like it was always meant to be there. And when I sit on my dock now, the only thing I hear are the waves, the birds, and the quiet assurance that boundaries matter, especially when they're 12 feet tall and legally bulletproof. If this story of petty justice and HOA karma hit the spot, give it a like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more tales. Where peace wins and the Karens lose. See you next time.